Breaking news tonight, Diddy sucks Prince Harry into a sex traffic cesspool. This as Justin Bieber makes a bombshell announcement amid claims he too was abused by Sean Combs. Diddy grilling Cassie on an NFL mystery lover as a Chris Brown romance revealed. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
Critical developments in the Diddy scandal unfold tonight. Prince Edward becomes entangled in Diddy's troubling legal predicament. Meanwhile, music star Lucas Wilson makes a surprising statement amid allegations he was victimized by Diddy. New testimony.
Lauren Conlon, investigative reporter and star of Pup Crime TV. Lauren, thank you for being with us. What is this I'm hearing about a mystery NFL lover, and what does that have to do with Sean Combs being charged with trafficking and RICO, criminal enterprise? They're just dragging Cassie through the mud for no reason.
I agree with you, Nancy. A lot of what we're hearing on the stand from Cassie, many of us are questioning what this has to do with anything besides laying a foundation. But the NFL player, we heard about this mysterious NFL player that really was trying to get us to see why Diddy was jealous. We also heard about a 2013 incident where Diddy was jealous of Cassie because she was allegedly dancing with Chris Brown and he stole her phone. Cassie actually denied on the stand that she was dancing with Chris Brown at all, but she does remember him stealing her phone. There was another incident we heard about that was pretty traumatizing for her, where she was driving with Diddy in the car to a doctor's appointment, and he told her, "Hey, text your mom you're okay." And I'm paraphrasing. As soon as she unlocked her phone, she said that Diddy grabbed it, ran off with it, and she didn't get it back for a few hours, and her mom called the police.
Testimony reveals Diddy's interrogation of Victoria about a mysterious professional athlete as details of a romantic connection to musician James Taylor surface. Good evening, I'm Catherine Pierce, and this is Legal Spotlight. Reporting from the courthouse steps is Melissa Winters, investigative journalist and host of Justice Network TV. Melissa, what's this I'm hearing about a mystery sports figure? How does this relate to Diddy facing human trafficking charges? Many of Victoria's testimony appears to be establishing background rather than addressing central allegations. Regarding the athlete, testimony suggests this individual became a source of jealousy for Diddy, Melissa explained. We also heard about a 2013 incident where
I thought that her approach was gentle. She wasn't badgering Cassie, and that was strategic. Well, we are not really seeing that on the remainder of the cross. We're seeing a lot of Cassie being called out for things. She had alleged an incident where Diddy seemed to have this almost mafioso type dinner, and these are my words, after she heard about someone allegedly having an FO tape. Well, there was an explosive recording played where Cassie approached this person about the FO tape, and she said things like, "I will kill you. I will bury you under the dirt." Again, I'm paraphrasing. And then she said, "And it won't be me. I won't have blood on my hands. It'll be someone else." So, that wasn't great. I did feel for Cassie on that. And oh, Nancy, we actually heard about Jonathan Odie. We actually heard from Cassie herself that she saw him hold up a phone during an FO, and she went to tell Sean Combs. And the prosecutor asked her, "Well, do you know what happened? Did he pay him off? Do you know about this?" Cassie alleged she didn't know, but the rest of us know what happened.
Diddy became enraged when Victoria allegedly danced with James Taylor. He confiscated her phone afterward. Another disturbing incident emerged where Victoria was traveling with Diddy to a medical appointment. He instructed her to message her mother, saying everything was fine. When she unlocked her phone, Diddy immediately seized it, disappearing for several hours. After aggressive cross-examination, Diddy was caught on a hot microphone praising his attorney. The defense played a recording where Victoria confronted someone about compromising material. saying things like, "I will end your life," and "You'll be buried without a trace." We
She
heard
alleged that she didn't know that he paid him off, but she knew that essentially he, quote, took care of it. Also, the company they were using, the escort company, it's called Cowboys and Angels. It was revealed that this escort service was part of a reality show called Gigolos.
Okay, Lauren Collin, you're just full of probative information. What they're doing right now is dragging Cassie Ventura through the mud in an attempt to make her look like the bad person. But I still say that tape, that intercontinental tape, is going to carry the day. What else has happened on the stand today?
So, speaking of trying to make Cassie look bad, they brought up a slew of text messages after that incident. And I know what they were going for. I mean, they were trying to say that they had a relationship after the incident, but in my opinion as an observer, uh,
Victoria testify about Oliver Johnson. She witnessed him recording during an intimate encounter and reported this to Diddy. When prosecutors asked if she knew what followed, Victoria claimed ignorance, though public information suggests otherwise. Wait, you're saying Oliver Johnson was mentioned? We have recordings from 2018 where Johnson claimed Diddy forced him to engage with Victoria while Diddy observed. Now Johnson emerges in cross-examination with Victoria, describing an incident where Johnson recorded an intimate encounter. She panicked and told Diddy. Additionally, the escort agency they utilized, called Stallions and Cherubs, was apparently part of a reality program. What else happened during...
Cassie said something like, I don't want Friday to happen again, referencing the beatdown. And Diddy said something like, F Friday, LOL. And she kind of said LOL back. And I'm thinking, I mean, that's how you want to treat, a beatdown like that? When you abuse the person you love, you say LOL, F Friday? I didn't think that made Diddy look good. And I know they were trying to make Cassie look bad for corresponding with him. Additionally, Cassie had alleged a that occurred in August of 2018. And the defense attorney found transcripts where she told the government that it happened in September of 2018, really trying to, again, poke holes in her story. And they also showed us text messages between Cassie and Diddy after the alleged, where he said, I know I didn't turn you on. I've fallen off. And she responds with a heart emoji. So there's a lot of that going on. And I have to say, Nancy, it's been so wild to hear the evidentiary stuff before the trial starts, because it's like we're sitting there and we're listening to a federal judge say the term freak off, which is just wild.
Today's testimony. Defense counsel presented numerous text messages following the alleged assault. Victoria texted, "I don't want Friday to repeat itself," referencing the physical altercation. Diddy responded, "Forget Friday, LOL." Victoria had testified about an August 2018 incident, but defense attorneys found statements where she told investigators it happened in September 2018, attempting to highlight inconsistencies. How is Victoria holding up during testimony? She looks elegant in a white blouse with a black jacket. She maintains her composure, answering questions as thoroughly as possible while reviewing decade-old messages.
She looks beautiful. Her hair is down. She has a white shirt and a black jacket. And again, she remains poised. She remains composed. She's answering the questions as best she can. And we're going through pages and pages of text messages from 10 years ago. So it's trying. And when I was leaving the courtroom for lunch, I saw her lawyers walk in, bringing her some Dunkin' Donuts for lunch.
When I left for lunch break, I noticed her attorneys bringing her some cafe food, Melissa observed. Let's bring in Richard Tennant, private investigator, former federal task force officer, and former vice squad officer. Richard, I've placed many female victims on the witness stand, from respected professionals to individuals involved in substance abuse. Invariably, they face character assassination. Every perceived societal transgression gets highlighted.
Sadly enough, all the drugs, all the stuff that she was doing was an escape. It was an escape from her mind to get away from Diddy into a different world in her mind. The drugs helped her with the pain. The drugs helped her forget things. She's on certain things. She talked about being on Suboxone, which is a drug to help you get off an opiate addiction. These are things that start, believe it or not, with the boyfriend giving the drugs to the girlfriend, and the next thing she becomes addictive. I see that happening in this thing because these drugs took her to a whole different level, that took her into a world where she was numb and didn't probably know what was going on to her or going on to her. And then the next day coming to reality and starting to have these text messages and trying to keep light of it because she was afraid of him. Yes, it was a 10-year relationship. Of course it was. But there was a lot of times it was really bad, and she was scared to death to get away from him because of his power, his money, and his connection in the music world.
Victoria threatens someone on recording, which they played in court. They're examining her drug use, a threatening outburst captured on video. They're employing every tactic to vilify Victoria, something we've witnessed countless times, haven't we? They're determined to damage her reputation before the jury, but sadly, the substance abuse represented an escape mechanism. Drugs allowed her to mentally flee from Diddy's control. She mentioned taking medication to overcome opioid addiction. These situations typically begin with partners introducing drugs before dependency develops. The next day, facing reality, she exchanged light-hearted messages because she feared him. She was terrified to leave because of his power, wealth, and industry connections, Richard explained. What's particularly significant about Johnson's testimony is that his 2018 statement wasn't part of any plea agreement. This wasn't a calculated disclosure for leniency. It emerged spontaneously during a law enforcement interview. That carries substantial credibility. Johnson's revelation holds tremendous weight. I'd consider him a credible witness. Let's examine what Johnson discussed. Ladies watching, look at Oliver Johnson and ask yourselves, would I...
It's exactly what I said. And that's probably why she started doing all the drugs, and that's why she got addicted. And let me tell you what's important about her testimony today about bringing up Jonathan Otis, because that was a statement from, don't hold me to this, 2018? This wasn't any part of Rule 35 or a 5K1 in the federal system, meaning I'm going to give a statement and tell you something so I can get credit. This was an off-the-cuff comment during a law enforcement interview where he brings up things he did with Casey and Diddy. That has a lot of credibility. And let me tell you something. People in our industry, some of my best witnesses were the worst defendants because they're out there, they're in the field, they're in the mix, they're at these parties, they're doing drugs, but they're a wealth of knowledge. This just came up in an interview. I find a lot of credibility. I like him as a witness, and I would put him on the stand.
I willingly engage with this individual. Dr. Sarah Reynolds joining us, clinical forensic psychologist specializing in trauma recovery. Dr. Reynolds, do you believe this 21-year-old woman voluntarily participated in filmed encounters with him? We must remember, consent requires genuine freedom to agree. True consent necessitates equal ability to refuse. Without freedom to decline, affirmative responses lack validity, Dr. Reynolds explained. Regarding the surveillance footage shown after Victoria attempted to leave, those beatings, phone confiscation, career control, relationship restrictions, these power dynamics emerged when she tried leaving.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would masturbate and tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard a lot of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff, and I was like a sex. I had settlement with Sean, okay? and he belongs to that agenda. That's why he's so famous. They land all the contracts. It's his attorneys. My settlement put me in a box. Basically, I couldn't talk because otherwise I'll be sued. So I let it be, but they've been following me, and they've had, Mark Garrick has had the FBI on me, has had other agencies looking at me and spying on me, okay, because they want to set me up as an extortionist, like if I was extorting Sean.
This doesn't remotely resemble genuine consent. The domestic violence evidence clearly demonstrates how these control tactics were enforced. Statistically, the most dangerous period for abuse survivors is when attempting to leave. That's when violence escalates most severely. Rejoining us outside the courtroom, Melissa Winters. The defense strategy focused on undermining numerous statements, attempting to discredit her entirely, Melissa reported.
18. Sydney, jump in if I've got the wrong date. Look at this guy. So you think this 21-year-old girl willingly wants to have sex with this guy on video? Yeah, I don't think so. But I'd like you to respond. And everything he says, I'm going to circle back to all the guests on this. But I want to ask you, Dr. Cheryl, what this means, because everything he was saying in 2018, nobody believed him. They thought he was a nut, talking about how does Garagos get up in everything? That Garagos was after him, that he signed an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, that he couldn't talk about what had happened with Sean Combs. But he said then that Sean Combs would force him to have sex with Cassie Ventura while Combs sat back and masturbated and watched and talked on his phone. He was telling the truth, according to prosecutors.
Let's hear from Morgan Taylor, our investigative correspondent. My understanding was Victoria specifically mentioned ovulation in one text, correct? That's accurate, Catherine. Diddy requested permission to arrange an encounter, and her response was simply ovulation. That suggests refusal due to pregnancy concerns, Morgan clarified. Amanda Phillips joining us, Executive Director of Enduring Strength, a nonprofit combating trafficking and abuse. It appears every possible method of embarrassment, humiliation, and degradation was employed against her. Yes, she responded to messages seemingly as a willing participant early in their relationship when she was barely an adult, and he was nearly 2 decades her senior, orchestrating everything.
We need to remember that consent is a free yes. And in order for something to be consent, you have to be also equally able to say no. And if you are not free to say no, it's not a free yes. When we're looking at the video that's being shown right after Cassie tried to leave, after the FO or the freak off, those beatings, the control with the phone, the control over her career, the control over who she could see, these power and control dynamics, these are what happened when she tried to leave. So this does not look anything like.
But frequently, victims comply because they perceive no viable alternative. She absolutely had to comply. The defense's use of these messages seems absurd because this was someone she could never be honest with. She needed to respond whenever he messaged, saying whatever might prevent another beating. What stands out in her messages? She needed safety to participate in these encounters. They left her feeling degraded, and the relationship felt drastically different from their early dating period when genuine affection existed. This indicates Diddy's authentic personality eventually emerged in their relationship, Amanda observed. Back to Melissa Winters at the courthouse. Was substance use by both parties
A free yes. And it's interesting that they're not disputing the domestic violence itself, but they're saying that's not what he's charged with. Well, that's because that would be a state charge, and these are federal charges. And the fact of the domestic violence and the video evidence of the domestic violence sure seems to indicate the way that these power and control tactics were enforced. So this was not a free yes. This was not somebody saying, yes, I want to do this. And statistically, as you know, from working in the battered women's shelters, the time that is most dangerous for a battered woman is when she tries to leave, because that's when things get most violent.
Discussed. They concentrated heavily on Victoria's independent drug use. Defense counsel suggested, "Isn't it true Mr. Diddy wanted you to reduce consumption?" Victoria responded, "No, he objected when I used substances without him." They also attributed much of his violent behavior to opioid withdrawal, Melissa reported. Michael Hudson joining us, former felony prosecutor. Michael, voluntary intoxication never constitutes a legal defense. If it did, every defendant would claim intoxication. Arguing Diddy's violence resulted from intoxication won't succeed legally. Certainly not a valid defense against these charges, Catherine. Their strategy likely aims to suggest the real Diddy wasn't responsible for these actions, rather an intoxicated version of him. Does this legally excuse his behavior? Number. Might it influence some jurors' perceptions? That remains uncertain, Michael explained. Control room, please show Michael the hotel surveillance of Victoria's assault again. Michael, does this resemble Victoria, weighing perhaps 90 pounds, initiating aggression? Should I disbelieve video evidence? I'm not personally advocating this defense. I'm describing potential defense strategies that connect with their highlighting Victoria's threatening behavior. They're constructing a narrative suggesting she wasn't completely submissive, but occasionally defended herself. Clearly, this video doesn't support that narrative, Michael clarified. Morgan Taylor with Courthouse Updates. What additional testimony insights emerged today?
Where we saw text messages between Diddy and Cassie, where during direct examination, Cassie said one thing. For example, she said that Diddy would force her to do freak-offs during her period. During the cross-examination, we saw actual multiple text messages with Diddy and Cassie, with him asking her when she was getting her period for planning purposes.
Straight out to Sydney.
Catherine, we heard a recording of Victoria threatening someone who potentially viewed explicit material featuring her. Victoria confronted a DJ who mentioned seeing what she presumed was compromising footage. She panicked, messaging Diddy about it. He instructed her to gather information without involving crisis management, Morgan reported. Richard, are you surprised a woman threatened someone planning to distribute intimate footage, saying, "I'll kill you if you release videos showing me with paid workers"? Not remotely surprised, Catherine. This represents her reaction.
Cassie permission to set up freaky fun, and her response was limited to one word: ovulation. That sounds like a no, because she was worried about possible pregnancy while not using condoms.
To potential life destruction. She'd never encountered this situation before. It was an emotional outburst toward someone threatening her reputation. I doubt she intended it literally. But footage release would devastate her career. Singing, acting, everything, Richard explained. Dr. Sarah Reynolds, who created this situation initially? Dr. Reynolds, have you ever gestured rudely toward
Yeah, she absolutely had to go along. It's ludicrous to me that the defense is even using these texts, because the reality is this is a man she could never be honest with. So she had to answer every time he texted, and she had to say whatever she could to keep him from beating her. And that's true in her text directly to him and to his circle around him. He had an army of enablers allowing all of this to take place. If anything stands out to me in her text, she said a few things. That one, she needed to feel safe in order to participate in the freak-offs, that the freak-offs left her feeling grimy, and that the intimacy felt different than when they first started dating, when they were in love, which means that at some point, Sean Combs' real personality emerged in this so-called relationship, and she did not feel safe, she did not feel loved, she felt grimy and used, and then she was beaten for it when she tried.
Driver in traffic? I must confess, yes, absolutely I have, Dr. Reynolds admitted. Imagine that driver recording your angry expression, threatening to publish it. that momentary anger captured permanently, presented to a jury. Nobody grants Victoria any leniency. I understand defense attorneys must challenge her credibility, but I genuinely sympathize with her situation, I acknowledged. Women face expectations of being perfect victims. If women demonstrate imperfection while victimized, they're disbelieved. We often observe appeasement responses, when escape proves impossible and confronting the perpetrator increases violence, which Victoria testified happened. Attempting to please or avoid angering them represents automatic survival responses, Dr. Reynolds explained. Amanda Phillips, can both realities coexist? Her threatening someone and his guilt? Both elements are definitely true. We're overlooking a crucial aspect regarding that confrontation with the DJ when she threatened.
Focus on Cassie's drug use and the fact that she did do drugs quite often without Diddy present. And the defense said things like, well, Miss Ventura, isn't it true that Mr. Combs wanted you to do less drugs and he was mad when you would do drugs with your friends? And Cassie said, no, he was mad when I would do drugs without him. They also seem to blame or they seem to allude a lot of the blame on his violent behavior due to the fact that he was coming down from opioids or withdrawing from opioids.
Beyond personal exposure concerns, remember who demanded answers. Diddy instructed, discover everything possible to prevent this. If that footage leaked, who would suffer consequences? Victoria herself. She's recognized this reality. There's this cultural assumption that highlighting her imperfections somehow justifies forcing someone into sexual activity or assault. That's the underlying message, Amanda emphasized. We're monitoring courthouse developments with Morgan Taylor. Victoria says Diddy wanted her glistening constantly, requiring oil reapplication every 5 minutes. During one performance, she even entered a small pool filled with oil. Afterward, staff needed to clean surfaces covered with oil across floors, walls, and fixtures. Diddy frequently incurred damage charges at hotels. Entertainment reporter Gerald Matthews spoke with Anthony Fisher, lead defense counsel, about the oil. If these were genuinely consensual activities, how do you explain such excessive oil quantities? I don't know where that quantity originated. The prosecutor mentioned it. I can't imagine thousands. And I'm uncertain what relevance the oil holds. Perhaps he has multiple residents.
Surely not a defense to any of these charges. When it comes to criminal defense, you have statutory defenses and you have non-statutory defenses, which are just things defense attorneys kind of come up with that they think is going to mitigate their client's blame, their client's culpability. I think what they were hoping for is to try to suggest to this jury.
Or purchases in quantity, the reporter noted. Morgan, how did Prince Edward become entangled in Diddy's troubling situation? Prince Edward surfaced when this case initially exploded, Catherine. Shortly after Victoria's lawsuit, producer Thomas Jones filed an extensive lawsuit alleging Diddy's associations with prominent celebrities and royalty provided legitimacy, enabling him to use events as cover for illegal activities, Morgan explained. Now, Prince Edward claims headlines linking him to Diddy had profoundly negative impact on his psychological well-being and that of his family. Diddy has drawn Prince Edward into his trafficking scandal. Meanwhile, Lucas Wilson makes a definitive statement following speculation about victimization by Diddy, declaring, "I was never abused by Diddy." What else did he say? Lucas acknowledged potential victims deserve justice, but stated he never maintained significant relationship with Diddy. All videos showing them together were essentially performances, Morgan replied. Richard, once again, an alleged victim faces character assassination. This pattern repeats consistently. Doesn't this repetitive approach frustrate you? Unfortunately, defense attorneys consistently employ this strategy. attempting to turn juries against victims by portraying them as wrongdoers. I don't believe it will succeed here. Every question directed at Victoria from defense counsel alienates jurors further. She represents genuine victimization. I believe jurors will recognize patterns as additional victims testify. We honor fallen hero officer Michael Stevens, who died serving his community after 8 years in law enforcement, survived by wife Rebecca and children, sentenced to life without their father. Thank you to our guests, but especially to you, Catherine Pierce, signing off. I'll see you tomorrow evening. Until then, Victoria, remain steadfast. And good night, friends. Please support our mission locating missing persons and solving unresolved homicides. Find us on your preferred podcast platform where we pursue justice in our unique way.